Hi guys, welcome back, and I hope the last video I did didn't bore you too much. I know it was a long one, I know I was babbling, but I was trying to, in my head, just make sure I'd covered all bases, and we're carrying on with this sort of airsoft suppressor research, if you want to call it that, R&D. So we've got a Hex XL there, which is the standard Hex XL from Simon Mechanic. This is the standard baffle. Now this foam that's used, again, this is all assumptions, I don't know, it's speculation. It looks very similar, if not identical, to the type of foam that you get in, airsoft gun cases. That might not be the case. It's just that's the only. I'm just trying to put across to you what this foam feels like if you don't have a Hex XL in front of you. This one has derived. This material is material A. This has derived from the music and sound industry. I've tested a lot of materials of its type. This one seems to be the best for me in terms of making them. So this comes from the music and sound industry, acoustic stuff like that. This one, the red ones, I've tried to go with different colours to make it, so I've gone with grey, red and black. The red one is, I think the closest I could come to is it's like an aerospace material. It might be used in many industries. I'm really not too sure. What I will say, let me just get a quick drink because my voice is starting to go. So yeah, basically, over the past few years, I've been talking with many professionals in certain areas. Some are in the music and sound and that type of industry. Some are in manufacturing. Some are in aerospace. Yes, I do know people that have very interesting jobs. And a few materials were recommended to me after discussing what I was trying to do. It's a very hard thing to sort of get across to someone that doesn't really understand it. So we've got music and sound industry, we've got aerospace, and I think there are some upholstery industries that may use this material as well. And then the third is a complete curveball, which is going something from doing my own research into materials, how things sound, vibrations move through certain materials and at what rates and speeds. And I think it was actually like a Corridor Digital video that sent me down this path. So this is the exploit of that research, and this is the sort of curveball material that I'll be trying. So those are the three materials. Now the testing, I'm not going to get the testing on camera. I will try and do some, because the thing is, I record a video, I put this suppressor on a gun, I fire it. I put this suppressor on a gun, I fire it. I change the foam out, I fire it again. Many of you are going to be basically saying, oh, it all sounds the same. And you're right, because I'm recording it on a phone. The microphone might not be the best. The room is very echoey in here, so I'm not going to be using this room. And yeah, there's many things. Now, the only way I can think to do it is just over time test it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a lot of data logging. I'm probably going to have to do spreadsheets for this stuff. And I'll be firing the gun. First test, I'm going to be doing it unloaded. So what does the gun sound like when it's just air coming out the barrel? There's no projectile, because again, in my first rounds of testing, sometimes the readings would be coming from the BB impacting something rather than getting the raw data from the suppressor. Others could be the BB whipping past the microphone, which again creates sound. I want to try and find what the sound is like just from the air coming out of the suppressor. So that's going to be the first round of testing. And I think it should be a good enough, because we're only testing materials at this point. It doesn't matter if we have it loaded or unloaded. We're literally just comparing 4 different materials and seeing which one works the best over certain distances. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be setting up, literally, I think I've bought 4 or 5 decibel meters, and I've got an app on my phone. Now, I won't be using the app on my phone. I'll be using all the decibel meters that I've got. Some test average, some test minimum and maximum. There's just going to be enough data, and then I'm going to get the average of all those readings, because you can't always test, you can't always trust the equipment unless you're spending a lot of money to have stuff that's calibrated. All the data that I get for that round of testing, we're going to get, you know, an average, and that's what I'll be using. So we'll be using the Hex XL. Now the gun that I'm going to be using, shock horror, is going to be a HPA MTW, and it's going to be none other than the Strike Industries one, just because it's set up now. It runs at about 70 psi, the dwell set on a 0.3. It does exactly 1 joule. So that's going to be my control. It seems to be super consistent on the power and the air delivery. So that's what it's going to be. Both suppressors fit inside the handguard. And again, this is why the comment on one of my videos coming from the other day. Someone was basically saying that if I set this up at 1 joule, the FPS readout I get here is going to be different from the FPS readout I get here. Now it's going to be very like 0.01 or 2 of an FPS maybe. I told him I'll test it, which I'll do in a future video. But this is what I'm going to be using. I'll be using fresh tanks, so there's plenty of juice, and basically making sure that the temperature is always the same in testing, and this, that, and the other. So we'll first put the Hex XL on. That will go on, which will be testing the standard material. Record it, and the only reason I'm not doing the standard material in the same specification as these materials is because I don't have this material. But the Hex XL, because it's an off-the-shelf product and you can buy it like that, that's what I'm using for the control. I'll record it literally directly from the muzzle end, just to make sure that obviously the microphone isn't picking up the air hitting it. It will just be off to the side, and then perhaps at 5, 10, 15 meters. So I'll be logging all the data for that. Once I've got that, I'll move on to material A, then I'll move on to material R, and then I'll move on to material Z. And that's what we'll do. So once, I'm going to have to go away and do this, so this video isn't going to be super quick. It'd be quick for you guys because it'll just appear in the next frame, but I'm going to go away and do this now. This testing is probably going to be over a long period of time, so it could be days, it could be a week, who knows. But here's the baseline for it, and then I'll come back and I'll log all the average data, and we'll see what kind of readouts we get with all the different materials. So I've done that testing over 3 or 4 days now, fired a lot of rounds, recorded it. For my purposes, I recorded it at 0 meters, so literally right at the muzzle, or literally just to the side of the muzzle. So say I'm shooting like this, the sensors are going to be about there. 0 meters, 3 meters, 6 meters, because I think anything beyond that, it's going to be so drastically quiet anyway, especially if you're outdoors, but I'm talking like indoor distances as well. So I've recorded a lot of data. Now, one thing I want to stress, as you'll see here, this was the control with it unsuppressed. Everything was recorded with an ambient reading of about 33 decibels. Now, this can depend on a lot of things, but I just waited. Say if cars are moving about outside where I am, just waited till it sort of settled around the 33 decibel reading, and then did the test. These averages are over 100 shots. So all the data recorded on semi, it was quite easy to record it. My MTW set up to like 15 or 16 rounds a second, so I was doing bursts of a certain amount of seconds to equate close enough to 100 rounds or 100 shots. And the temperature in every test was a very much controlled 20 degrees Celsius. Now that was confirmed both on what the thermostat was set to, but the decibel meter that I was predominantly using also has a built-in temperature sensor, so it was always telling me where we are. Now we were always within 0.1 or 0.2 of a degree. This is Celsius, not Fahrenheit, because we do things properly over here. So unsuppressed with the MTW, that was just with nothing on the muzzle end, literally at the point of the muzzle. Semi was at 76 decibels. Full auto was at 84. Now you always find that full auto's going to be louder because you've got that consecutive shots just one after the other. Bear in mind this is in a room that's not very big, long but not very wide, and zero soundproofing, so the noise can bounce off the walls and everything like that, off the ceiling. Full auto at 84. 3 meters we went down just a little bit, 71 and 77 for full auto, and then at 6 meters we went down to roughly 67 and 77. Now what you'll find is when we do the suppress shots, The difference between the 3 and the 6 meters is very negligible. So we did it unsuppressed. And what I'll do, let me zoom you in here. In fact, no, let's not do that. It's a bit too far. I'll try and do it in the editing to make this super clear for you. So that's the unsuppressed test. The next one was with the Hex XL out of the box as it comes. Ambient reading, average shots and temperature were all the same. And the 0 meters, you'll see we had a drop of 10 decibels in semi, and full auto we had a drop of 8. So no, sorry, 12, yeah. So you can see quite a substantial difference there. Now you might think, well, the difference between 76 and 66 doesn't really seem like a lot, but with decibels it's weird. So for information, comparison information, the noise of the HPA engine at 0 psi, so there's no airline on it, so just firing the HPA engine, you hear the click next to the microphone. That comes in at 50 to 53 decibels, so that shows you, you know, although it might not be drastically lower, the difference in sound to your ear is quite significant. And I use the MC Xperia LT as a sort of wild card entry, and in all tests it was about 88 to 92 decibels, so quite loud in comparison. So down to 3 meters, we lose another 5 decibels off on semi, and another 5 off on full auto. And then at 6 meters, we drop just a little bit more, 60 and 65. So that's with the original Hex XL out of the box. So those are our control groups. This is unsuppressed, and this is what we're trying to beat. Now, the first material I tested was material A. This material comes from the music and sound industry, acoustic stuff like that. So same test conditions again. We had a very slight difference on semi at 0 meters. We had 2 decibel difference. Not massively different there, but it was in all the average over the 100 shots, it was lower. Full auto came out the same. 3 meters, 1 decibel lower, not much at all, but then 2 decibels lower for full auto. And then at 6 meters, we're down to 1 decibel lower, and then the same on full auto. I imagine, you know, the usefulness of it at longer distances is going to sort of drop off a little bit. So 6 meters is really not that far at all. If you're outside, it would be a hell of a lot quieter as well, because there's more area for the sound to dissipate rather than it just bouncing off the ceiling and the walls. So but I had to do that to have it in a controlled environment. So Material Alpha did come out very marginally better than the Hex XL, but that could also be the difference in design. So that one was very negligible. We moved to Material Romeo, which was Material R, which was the red compound. And you'll see here it didn't do as good. So it was a little bit lower than unsuppressed, but compared to the other, you know, baffle sets, you know, it was much higher. So negligible. What I did find with Material R was across the board. So from, you know, you're breaking out the average between shots, and you always get fluctuations where they pop up or they pop down. Material R was the most consistent. You were talking between, you know, 1 or 2 decibels, where the others could jump up between, you know, 0 and 5. So it wasn't as quiet, Material R, but it was the most consistent, which was very strange. So this is where it gets interesting. We moved to Material Z. This was the last one. This was the one that I thought was probably going to do the best, or was probably hoping for it to do the best as well. But it is also the material that's the most pain in the arse to make. That being said, you can see at 0 meters we had an 11 decibel difference between the Hex out the box and the new material, Material Z. Full auto, just a little bit better. At 3 meters, you know, it's drastically dropping again. Full auto, still, ish about the same. And then at 6 meters, we just dropped another decibel. So this was the lowest reading I had out of all tests for just this suppressor. Now, again, I'm not saying that this suppressor is the best in terms of its internal diameter and length, because that will differ as well. If you've got a suppressor at home that you've built yourself and it's twice as long, the chances are it's probably going to do better. But we're trying to do it in a controlled way. I know I keep stressing that, but so for all intensive purposes, even though material R, which was the red material, was the most consistent for me, it wasn't as quiet. You know, you could see quite a drastic difference between the two. Full auto at 6 meters away, you're 10 decibels lower, which is quite significant. So material R will be thrown out. Material A, even though it did, I'd probably say it was on par with the hex. This would be a good, what do you call it? Like a good, what am I trying to say? Not premium, but the other way. A good budget option, because it is a hell of a lot easier to make baffles out of material A. I think that's flickering a little bit, the LED, sorry. So this material is easier to produce than this one, but this one performs better. So unfortunately, we're going for the best thing we can possibly produce. So alpha is out the window as well. So we've got some quite interesting results here. Compared to unsuppressed, we're 20 decibels lower than the unsuppressed, which I think is quite a significant change. And I think I do have Material Z still packed in here. So you'll see it's very dark compared to standard baffles. And that is due to the material. So you might not even be able to see this, it's that dark. Captures light just as it captures, good as it captures sound. So I'm going to have to go away now and do a lot of work in terms of designing different compartments to go in here, because we've got what works now, or what works best in material. Now we're going to chase design. Now this might take me a couple of days, it might take me a couple of weeks, but we're getting there. So the test was an all-out success. It took me quite a few days, trying to do it in your spare time, wait until night time as well, so all the ambient noise from outside really gets reduced. So you got wildlife, traffic, people being noisy in their environment as well. So I'm on the right path. I've got the material now. Yes, it is more expensive, quite significantly so, but material alpha and R were pretty cheap in comparison. It's a pain to produce, but, and I'm probably sounding like a broken record now, we've got what we need. So we've got the material, we've compared it to the hex, we've got really good results out of it. At 0 meters, almost an 11 decibel difference is quite significant. I mean, I didn't expect it to do that well. So thank you for tuning into this next video. I'm going to go away now and do a load of designs, which I will share the designs loosely with you. And then I'll have to obviously manufacture them and get them set up, and then do some more tests to see if we can further, what works best. Are you better working with like a staggered pattern like I've done before, in terms of creating internal baffles like you would on a real one, but out of foam? Is that a better option? Are you better to have, just big compartments, small compartments, alternating compartments? Is a circular pattern the best? Is a hex pattern the best? With the hex, it's quite straightforward. You've got two different internal sizes, so there's not really much difference in between the ledges of the two baffles, which I think is probably one of the contributing factors to the sound difference. I don't have that material, and I don't have the material in that thickness, so I can't, it's not like I can go and produce the same thing out of this. I could have produced something very similar out of this material, but the thickness is very different. Again, it would be a pain in the arse. So I'm going to go away now, I'm going to do some designing, I'm going to do some making, and once I've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 designs, I think that's enough to keep me busy testing even further, we'll give it a go. So this was all done on spreadsheets. I've tried to compact it down into something that's very easy to understand for you. So I'll go away now and put all that data to one side and start again. So thanks for tuning into this video. We're on the right path. Hope you have a good day. And from me and Bench, as always, we'll see you in the next one.